What's up, everybody? Welcome to podcast now. I'm Alex. In this video, I want to talk about Friday the 13th, the game. And look, many people have probably already said at least the first part of what I'm going to say in this video, but I want to take a different angle on it, okay? We'll rapid fire through the news, and I want to get to something I think a little bit different. So we've already heard, by the way, this isn't actually new. I like this about the news, that people just kind of forget these things happened a long time ago. Some people, including myself, by the way, covered it a long time ago, but I guess it doesn't matter. A new Friday the 13th game is in the works. Now, we had heard about that a long time ago. I did a video on it, but it was doubled down on. It was a big weekend for Friday the 13th just in general. The exact wording, by the way, which I don't necessarily think you can read too much in, but he says, I can tell you that a new sequel movie and a new sequel game are at the top of our list. It's where most of our energy is going right now, and I can tell you we're finally in a position to deliver on that. We're not officially announcing our partners today. Both are coming. They're both in the works. So sequel game, by the way, like that exact wording, I don't literally think means sequel to Friday the 13th, the game. Like, I don't think it needs to be Friday the 13th, the game part 2 or 2. I think they're just talking about, like, this is the new era of Jason, new era of Friday the 13th. So hence, they talk about movie, talk about game. It's not necessarily a sequel, like a literal, this comes after that first one. At least that's how I read it. Could be reading it wrong. All right. So that's part one. That's the news. It's very early in development, which tells me, by the way, this started probably in the last year, 2 years, which you think about a movie that actually is not that bad of a thing, right? Movies can happen from start to finish pretty darn quickly. A game is much more damning. Not that a game is going to be like terrible or anything, but saying that you just started a game recently, as we know, even a multiplayer asymmetrical game, which I'm going to talk about in just a second, those games take at minimum 3 years, probably 4, somewhere in that 3 to 4 range. So you started it, say, within the last year, you're still looking at 2-3 years from now is when that game would come out. Whereas a movie, you could really turn that around and probably get it maybe a year, less than a game. Okay, so that's the news. In terms of what this thing should be, may I petition, okay, for a Friday the 13th single-player game? Now, hear me out, and I actually don't even think this is controversial. This is not a hot take, or at least it shouldn't be. We just got the announcement for Hellraiser last week. I actually was thinking, when talking about Hellraiser, we had A Quiet Place, that the game came out last fall. Now, that game was actually pretty darn good, like far better than I thought it was going to be. As we got closer and closer, it very much felt like it was going to be this heavily discounted, thrown together in a day type game. And honestly, it wasn't. It was a rock solid. It was very short. It was a contained experience, but it was a very rock solid game, okay? Hellraiser, single player, so freaking happy. Now, you had to sacrifice the Dead by Daylight parts of Hellraiser to get it, but whatever. You're getting a single player thing, and I think it'll probably be the same. Short, maybe 5, 7, 8 hours long, but that's okay. And that's kind of what I'm thinking for Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th also has that extra level of we just got, and I feel like it would be borderline insulting, to be honest with you, that there's maybe the hottest take of what I have to say. They literally shut down the game, right? The game from 2017. I covered that game, 8 years ago. I liked it a lot. It had so many problems. It was so buggy. It was so annoying at times, but it had so much heart, and it was a very special game. It was really a special game for the internet, too. I think it really took off from the help of Let's Players and all this different stuff online. It's a special game, and honestly, it stands as one of, a pretty, unique, almost origin point for the asymmetrical, like Dead by Daylight was first, but that was one that said, okay, well, now we can do Predator. Now we can do Ghostbusters. Now we can do Killer Clowns. Friday the 13th was important, all right? Now, I say all that in almost a retrospective tone. They shut it down just in the last year, okay? So you can't buy it, and for the most part, you can't really play it. So you're going to tell me, and this I think would be more insulting than like what the Hellraiser thing did. You're going to tell me that you had an entire game that was a, third person, you could play as Counselor or you could play as Jason, and it was working generally, whatever, right? And you shut it down, and you shut it down for the sole purpose to literally do it again. I'm sorry. I will take asymmetrical games. This is not a damning of asymmetrical games. Evil Dead, which I think honestly did things pretty darn differently for that type of genre. I've played literally every single one since Dead by Daylight. I guess the main ones, okay? From Dead by Daylight till now, I've played every single one. I will play every single one. Texas Chainsaw is actually a really, really good one. So I'll play them, but like, number one, you don't need them all to be like that. Hence, I think my push for Hellraiser. I've talked about Scream 1,000 times. I talked about Halloween 1,000 times. Make them single player. Like, to have a Friday the 13th, wouldn't it make it more like the movie anyway? I feel like Friday the 13th, the game where you're playing as a counselor and you're at the camp and he's around. And I mean, like, he can break through freaking walls and he's stalking you. And or you can play the other way around. I've always pitched for Scream like a choice base, like a Telltale thing where you're making decisions. Now, A Quiet Place was not like that, and Hellraiser I highly doubt is going to be like that. But first person, you're facing off against these things. It's a little Alien Isolation, I guess, like would be those, like the genre type would be those two games. You could do that. In fact, that's the thing I just pitched, right? You're a counselor, it's first person or it's third, whatever, and you're at the camp and you just think Quiet Place, Hellraiser, Alien Isolation, whatever, and then Jason is that huge foe that you're trying to avoid the whole game, and you have story moments, you have cutscenes, he's taking out people, etc. You could technically play it the other way around and kind of have a story-based thing where you're Jason, you're going after them, okay? Or you could do a Telltale thing, and you could make choices. You could make it a little bit more cinematic, literally like a movie. Literally make two. I guess you just have to make a Friday the 13th movie, make another one, and make it a game. Have us jump around different counselors. If you mess up, Jason takes you out. Maybe you play as Jason for one of the sequences, and you can take counselors out. Do whatever, I think there's a lot of potential there, personally. Like, and also, again, I'll keep doubling down. We just got the asymmetrical game. So to cancel or to shut it down and then to say, okay, we're making a new game, and then if it's the exact same thing, I don't think there's going to be many things that would get me more disappointed in almost anything gaming related over the next couple of years than if they announced that. I just, to me personally, and I'm sure I would still play it. I'm sure many people would be excited about that, again, because of everything I just said about that game. It was special, and if you can capture it again and you can do it better, okay, cool. But I don't know. I'm just looking for something a little bit different. If you're going to go for it, why, especially because you just shut down the game that you already had, why would you make the exact same thing again? And I could really see it happening. So I do not want that. I very much would prefer single player. By the way, I think you think about Quiet Place and stuff. Quiet Place took, I think, only like 3 years to come out. Those games can be pretty quick because, again, they're only 5, 6, 7 hour experiences. So you want a quicker way of getting a game out, you do something like that. And by the way, what's stopping you from doing more than one Friday the 13th game? One could be a single player, one could be a multiplayer. But I would, just prefer starting with single player. So that's my plea to them. If they watch these things, if they listen to these things, I think there's an appetite out there. It honestly has not even gotten close to its full potential, because really all we've ever gotten because like Telltale, like I don't know, I would not put like The Walking Dead in the same category as like what we're talking about here. But like in terms of what I'm talking about, like Alien Isolation, obviously freaking massive hit. Jurassic Park Survival, right? That's trying to do something very, very similar to it. But in terms of what I'm talking about for these horror things, like Quiet Place is solid, but Quiet Place, newer franchise, and the game's solid, but it's not like an elite thing or anything. And I feel like Friday the 13th just has a little bit more to give. Hellraiser, okay, now you're going even more into horror, a little bit more obscure. You're also going back into the freaking 80s, right? But, we don't know how that's going to play out, and that's also a franchise that has only had a couple good movies out of, like, freaking 12 or 13 or something. Okay, Friday the 13th. I think Friday the 13th, Scream, Halloween. Halloween's probably the ultimate one. You know what I mean? Halloween's single-player game where you're either stalking as Michael Myers or trying to avoid him, and you do a Telltale thing, or you do like a Alien Isolation, whatever thing. I think that's like the pinnacle, but I think a Scream, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, by the way, I think that would freaking rock. All these things I think could work as a single player thing, and that's the potential. I think the potential, we have a whole nother level to jump with the potential that we have not gotten yet with Quiet Place. I don't even think we'll get there with Hellraiser. I think there's another step up after even that. So that's my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.